At a party with my husband's closest friends, I tried to kiss him while dancing. He pushed me away and said, "I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you." Laughter exploded in the room. Then he leaned closer and added, "You don't even meet my standards. Stay in your lane." Everyone laughed harder. I smiled like it didn't break me, but when I finally spoke, the entire room fell silent. Some words sting, but mine would cut deeper. That night, I stopped being his wife. I became the woman who would burn his fake kingdom to ashes. I never imagined humiliation could have a sound, but that night it did. It sounded like laughter, sharp, ugly, echoing through a golden ballroom filled with people who pretended to admire us. I stood there in a silver dress my husband had chosen for me, a dress he said would match his status. I used to believe being his wife meant I belonged beside him. I didn't know I was only a decoration in his world, something he polished for display, not for love. The music was slow, the lights were soft, and everyone was watching us on the dance floor. I reached for his hand, leaned in gently, and tried to kiss him, thinking maybe, just maybe, we still looked like a couple in love. Instead, he pulled away as if I were something filthy. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you." Laughter exploded around us. Not a confused laugh. Not a polite laugh. A cruel one. The kind that stabs. I froze. For 2 seconds, I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Then he stepped closer, his breath cold against my ear. "You don't even meet my standards. Stay in your lane." He smirked, and the crowd laughed louder, feeding on my humiliation like vultures. I smiled, not because I was okay, but because I would rather bleed in silence than let him watch me break. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. "If that's what you think of me," I said, "then I won't stand in your way." The laughter stopped. Not because of my words, but because I didn't sound hurt. I sounded done. And nothing scares a controlling man more than a woman who has suddenly stopped reacting. I stepped away from him, away from the spotlight, away from the music. I walked through the ballroom in silence, feeling eyes on my back and whispers around me. But I didn't rush. I didn't run. I walked as if I still owned a room. Dignity, that was the only thing I refused to leave behind. The moment I exited the hall, something inside me changed. I used to think love meant patience, sacrifice, forgiveness. But that night, I learned something else. Love without respect is just emotional slavery. And I was done being a prisoner. When I arrived home, I didn't cry. I stood in front of the mirror and stared at the woman I had become. Small, quiet, erased. I remembered who I was before him, before his wealth, before the luxury that drowned me. I used to have dreams. I used to have a voice. I used to matter. And then, slowly, something ignited in my chest. Not sadness. Not jealousy. Not desperation. Fire. He thought I would kneel. He thought I would chase him. He thought humiliation would keep me weak. But humiliation does not break everyone. Sometimes, it awakens the wrong woman. I sat down at my desk and opened a locked drawer. Inside it was a file I had kept for years. Bank records, partnership papers, silent deals, hidden accounts. I was the one who organized every signature, every transfer, every contract. I was the invisible architect of his empire, the woman everyone ignored, the one who smiled quietly in the shadows while he took the credit. He built nothing alone, and he never realized I was the only person who knew exactly where the cracks were. He laughed at me in front of the world. But he forgot something important. I knew where his throne was weakest. As the clock ticked past midnight, I made my first move. A message. Just one. To a man who hated my husband more than I ever could, his biggest business rival. I didn't offer money. I didn't offer partnership. I offered information. By morning, a silence fell over the company. A deal collapsed. Investors panicked. The first domino had fallen. My husband woke up angry, shouting into phones, slamming doors, demanding answers. I watched him from across the room, drinking tea as if it were just another normal day. He didn't even notice the calm in my eyes. He never noticed anything unless it affected him directly. And that was always his weakness, his ego. He asked why I wasn't getting ready for breakfast with his partners, the same partners who mocked me the night before. I simply said, I won't be attending anymore. He frowned, confused, irritated that I was no longer following his unspoken rules. But he didn't understand. Not yet. A storm had begun, and he still thought the sky was clear. While he was busy trying to save his collapsing deal, I made my second move. I visited someone he had forgotten existed, his own lawyer's assistant. A woman he once fired publicly and humiliated for a mistake she never made. She remembered every insult. She remembered every word. Revenge doesn't always need soldiers. Sometimes it only needs the people your enemies stepped on while climbing up. By evening, more cracks appeared. Rumors spread. Shares trembled. His empire, the same empire he mocked me from, began to shake beneath his feet. He didn't know I was behind it. Not yet. He still believed I was the weak wife with hurt feelings. But I was no longer his wife. I was his consequence. That night, I sat alone by the window, watching city lights blur against the glass. I felt no guilt, no pity. He didn't just embarrass me. He erased me. And now, I wasn't taking revenge for a moment. I was taking revenge for every moment. Every ignored tear. Every silent night. Every insult wrapped in a smile. He once said I didn't meet his standards. He was right. I don't meet his standards. I exceed them. And when a woman realizes her worth, she doesn't destroy a man out of anger. She destroys him out of clarity. And I was crystal clear. I was just getting started. He didn't sleep that night. I could hear the restless footsteps in the hallway, the slam of drawers, the aggressive tapping of his fingers on his desk as he made call after call. By morning, the frustration on his face had turned into rage. When he realized the cracks were spreading faster than he could cover them, he finally looked at me, not as his wife, not as a partner, but as if I were a stranger sitting in his house. For the first time, he seemed unsure. He asked if I knew anything. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Why would I? You said I wasn't even worth a kiss. Why would a woman like me matter in your empire?" He froze, anger flickering in his gaze, but beneath that anger was something new, fear. He didn't recognize this version of me, and that made him uneasy. While he fought to save his collapsing deals, I moved quietly, precisely, and without mercy. One by one, I contacted the people he had stepped on, insulted, betrayed, or discarded. He had a long history of breaking others to feel powerful, and I knew every name, every incident, every wound. I didn't need an army. I just needed to open the doors he assumed would always stay shut. By the end of the week, the empire he bragged about at every dinner table was no longer a fortress. It was a house with broken walls, open windows, and flames crawling through the foundation. His investors blamed him. His partners doubted him. His board questioned him. And everywhere he turned, the only answer he found was another problem. At home, I watched in silence. I did not shout. I did not gloat. I did not need to. Nothing is louder than the fall of a man who believed he could never fall. One evening, he burst into the living room, tie loose, eyes fierce, voice trembling with fury. "This is your fault. Ever since that night, everything has gone wrong." His voice was shaking, not from power, but from panic. I stood up slowly and faced him. "No," I said. "This began long before that night. That night was just the moment you revealed who you really are." He scoffed, trying to regain control. "You think you can survive without me? You are nothing without my name." I stepped closer, inches from him, and whispered, "If your name was so powerful, it wouldn't be crumbling right now." He had no answer. His silence was the first victory I allowed myself to feel. Over the next days, his life turned into a battlefield of phone calls, failed strategies, and sleepless nights. His arrogance, once louder than the music in that ballroom, had become a desperate whisper. His friends, those who laughed with him, vanished. His allies disappeared. His ego, his pride, his image, all of it slipped through his fingers like sand. And then came the moment that ended everything. A document surfaced, one I had quietly prepared months ago, and now released through the right hands at the right time. It exposed a series of unethical business moves he thought no one would ever trace.
I didn't need to lie.
I just needed to reveal the truth he had buried. When the news spread, the empire didn't just shake, it collapsed completely. Overnight, he went from a respected name to a scandal, from a powerful figure to a headline drenched in disgrace. The same world that once applauded him now spit his name with contempt. The man who once humiliated me in a room full of people now hid from the world behind closed curtains. But the story didn't end there. One night, after the collapse was complete, he confronted me for the last time. No anger, no shouting, just a broken voice trying to understand. "Why?" he asked. "I know I hurt you, but why destroy everything?" I looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time, I saw not a monster, not a king, not an untouchable man, but a small, insecure boy disguised in expensive suits. Because, I said softly, "You didn't just hurt me, you erased me, and men like you only understand loss when it happens to you." He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "What am I supposed to do now?" I stepped back, picking up my bag. "Whatever you become after this is no longer my concern." He lifted his eyes, not in anger, but in pleading. "Can we fix any of this?" I paused. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I answered, "You destroyed us the moment you forgot I was your partner, not your accessory. You didn't lose your empire because of me. You lost it because you believed you could never be replaced." I walked to the door. Before leaving, I said one last thing, not in hatred but in finality. Respect is not a gift. It is a responsibility, and you never carried it. I left that house, that marriage, that life without looking back. I did not need revenge anymore. I already had it. What he lost could be rebuilt by someone stronger. What I gained could never be taken away again. He once said I didn't meet his standards. But in the end, he was the one who never met mine. And while he spent his days trapped in the ruins of who he used to be, I walked into a life built on my own terms, no longer silent, no longer erased, and never again afraid to stand in my own name. Because sometimes, a woman doesn't rise from being loved. Sometimes, she rises from being broken. And when she rises, she doesn't return to the fire. She becomes it.